Morning scripture, we have two. The first is Matthew 5, verses 14 to 16. Or again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant's search for fine pearls. When one pearl of great value was found, the merchant went back and sold everything else and bought it. Then, from the Gospel of Thomas, saying 76. Jesus said, "The kingdom of heavenly parent is like a merchant who had a supply of merchandise and found a pearl. That merchandise was prudent and sold the merchandise and bought the single pearl. So also with you, seek God's treasure that is unfailing, that is enduring, where no moth comes to eat and no worm destroys." Ancient words for our current day consideration.
Good morning. It's very nice to see the faces in this Zoom room. Thanks for making the time to be a part of this. What I'm hoping today is we can have a conversation about how it is that we have meaning in life. What is it that gives you meaning? I think in times of COVID and climate change and the insanity swirling around us politically for the last however many years, it's very important that we find that part of ourselves within ourselves that guides us through times like this and helps us understand not only with our minds, but have a sense of a meaningful life. And we're looking at a parable today. We're doing a series on the parables. And we have a tendency to look at each parable as an independent unit, but each one is illustrating an aspect of this kind of mysterious process or place. We're not really sure, called the kingdom of heaven. I don't think it's a place. I think it's Jesus is talking about sort of the creative organizing principle of the universe. And for different people, that's something different. But he's illustrating it with, today we're looking at a pearl, but it's not just like a pearl. It's also like a seed. It's like a net. It's all kinds of things. And to realize that this isn't like a test that you're learning the answer. A lot of people think that Jesus meant one thing by the parables, and maybe he did, but we don't know what that one thing is. And so you have to have the freedom to answer authentically from your own life. People like Jesus and Buddha and the great spiritual livers of life, the great lovers of humankind, I believe learn from life itself. I believe life is their teacher. And when they say things like, consider the birds of the air, look at a net, what it does, look at a seed, how it grows in the soil. We have to understand that they're not trying to get us to think the same thing that they're thinking. They're not trying to get us to memorize some answer to a quiz. They're trying to help us see and feel this sacred reality in which they live. A lot of people think that Jesus wants you to believe something, very specific. And I think if that's had been what Jesus had wanted, I think Jesus could have just invented a personal computer and would have done a much better job than trying to get a human being to think exactly the same thing. I think if Jesus just wanted to walk, to talk through us and to have us be messengers, that he would have been much better off just taking up ventriloquism. And that way wouldn't have this frustration of living human beings. But I don't think that's what he's wanting to do. I think that the reason he's teaching in parables is the same reason that Buddha taught in parables, in koans, is that Jesus is wanting you to look through your own eyes, to feel through your own skin, to think through your own mind, and to feel through your own heart. And you can't do that by memorizing. You can't do that by starting with answers. It has to grow organically through you. And I think when Jesus is talking about the pearl of great price, he's talking about aligning our entire lives to what gives us the most value. He's calling it a pearl in this particular parable. There's a Sufi saying, if you're looking for pearls, always try to find the pearl within the pearl. That if you're looking, if somebody asks you what it is that would give your life meaning, if you answer, well, I'd like to be successful, that would be the meaning of my life. Then the sort of the parable teacher then asks you, well, why do you want to be successful? And if you say, well, because I would like people to respect me, that's a different kind of value system than just business success. You want people to respect you and to like you. And then if they ask, well, why do you want other people to like you? And you say, well, because I like to like myself. And that would make that easier. Then again, a lot of times we're looking in the wrong place. And what parables do is take us deeper and deeper into ourselves. It starts with one pearl, but it becomes a different pearl as we deepen and mature. That really what gives us meaning in life is not necessarily what we start off looking for. And I think that the reason Jesus is teaching in parables is because of three things. One is what we're looking for is already here. We're just not seeing it. What we're looking for is something we already have. We're just not valuing it. And the answer to that is to think about what we most value in life, let that grow, and always move whatever that something is to the very center of our life. Let that be the organizing principle of our life. Why build our life around things that don't give us meaning? So we're looking at the parable today. The first thing I'm thinking is that the reason Jesus is having to put this into riddles is because what he's talking about is already here. It's not some other world. It's not something that we don't have, but we're not perceiving it. The other day, I don't know if you saw the news, but Ilda was able to leave our building for the first time and feel safe. And her deportation has been deferred for 12 months. And she went out into the field where the flowers are. And she was just beatific. I mean, she was so happy and so excited. She was kind of dancing around with this huge smile kind of thing. And afterwards I thought, well, those flowers have been out there and I've not gone out to look at them myself. That we live in a world of wonder, mystery, and beauty. And sometimes we think of things as so ordinary, we don't go deeper into them. And to realize that great artists of the world are living in the same kind of world that we live in. That when Van Gogh painted flowers, they weren't more colorful than what we see. We're just not looking as closely as he did at the flowers, at the starry night, and this kind of thing. So in a sense, what artists are doing is inviting us to go more deeply into our own lives. And I think that's what the parables are doing too. They're not talking about a kingdom somewhere else. They're talking about the creative nature of life, of the universe. And they live in that great mystery, and they're trying to share that with us, not so that we will memorize an answer, but so that we can have life be our teacher too, and be our guide. This story of the pearl also shows up in the Gospel of Thomas. It's very short, but in the Gospel of Thomas, it tells the story of the merchant selling pearls and says, seek that treasure that is unfailing. So again, he's saying, sell everything to get this pearl of ultimate worth. It says, seek that treasure that is unfailing, that is enduring, where no moth comes to eat and no worm destroys. Now, what I hear in that imagery is that we live in a fleeting world. We're all going to die. So what has value needs to have value in that context and not in some made-up world. What is it that endures from birth through life to as far down the road as we can see? Whatever it is, it's more like a path than it is a destination. For me, it's always been a sense of calling. Since I was a little child, I felt like there was something I needed to go to do. And I don't remember a time before that sense of calling. But I believe every person has a meaning, has a life. It's not pre-written for them, but when we live out of the core of our being, we each create a meaning and we become a gift for the world. And your calling is no less sacred, not one bit less sacred than an ordained person. It's the calling is very important. So the first, I think, lesson of the parable, the reason why this story of the great pearl has to be put in a riddle, is that Jesus isn't talking about someplace else. He's trying to help us perceive the richness, the beauty, the meaning that is right here in the world in which we live. The second thing I think requires Jesus to come up with a riddle is that we already have what we're searching for. We just don't value it. We value other things over our calling. And this great sense of meaning that's inside of us gets lost just in the complexity of things. There's another story in the early church about a merchant who sold pearls. And in this story, the strange outsider comes and is selling pearls. And the rich people look at it and say, well, this is, we don't see the pearls, so we don't believe them. And so they go into their homes. The poor, tell this poor teacher that they can't afford to buy a pearl. And so the pearl merchant says, I want to give this to you. These pearls of ultimate price are things that each person should have. And the story ends up, the punchline is it's Jesus. And what he's trying to get people in touch with is their own soul, their own essence. That the source of value is not outside of you. It's that sense of reverence, the sense of wonderment. And we trade that away for lesser treasures. Think of it like this. If somebody said you could have every painting that Van Gogh ever did, that'd be quite a treasure. But now suppose they said, instead of that, you could have the talent that Van Gogh had. See, then you might not have the paintings, but you could do the paintings yourself. That would be a greater treasure because it would be deeper inside of you. It would endure the changes of this fleeting world better than just having paintings where, moths don't eat paintings, but time takes them away. Now, one step further, what good is the genius and the talent of Van Gogh if he doesn't have a reverence for beauty? That sense of reverence is a deeper treasure than even the talent. Someone might have the talent of Van Gogh, but not the drive. He's driven from the core of his being to experience that beauty and to share it with us. But see, you have that reverence for beauty already. And so you already have this pearl of great price. It's the same thing with Einstein. It's like if you could have his great genius and come up with the same formulas, that might seem like the greatest treasure. But even if you're a genius, if you don't have wonderment of the universe, that sense of awe that drove Einstein from cradle to grave, then it would be talent gone to waste. And you already have that sense of wonder. It's maybe not the core of your life, but it could be the core of your life. So the sense of reverent beauty, of this wonderment for truth, pursuit of truth, and then the great lovers of humankind, the Martin Luther Kings, the Dorothy Days, the different people who have lived out and changed the world. The essence of that, the great pearl, the pearl within the pearl, as the Sufis say, was compassion. And you have that as standard equipment, the wonder, the reverence, the awe, the compassion. Those are things you have, but you haven't been taught to value them the same way your heroes and sheroes have. And so honoring that treasure within you is something that every one of us can do. So one of the reasons why Jesus is putting this in parables is that we're surrounded by this thing that we're looking for. We just can't perceive it. Also, we have it, but we haven't been taught to honor it. And finally, and most importantly, after we find it, it's making it the core of our life, making it the center, making it that for which we live. And it's not Jesus telling you what that great pearl is. It's you deciding what your ultimate value is right now at this place in time. It changes over time, and it changes between people. But when you start with the great pearl, as great as you can imagine it, it deepens, and the pearl within the pearl begins to shine. One of the great statements of that is Viktor Frankl, we looked at today in the Sunday school class. Remember, he was survivor of a concentration camp. We found today is 4 different concentration camps that he went to. This is for the meaning of life differs from person to person, from day to day, and from hour to hour. What matters, therefore, is not the meaning of life in general, but rather the specific meaning of a person's life at a given moment. Which is why Jesus teaches in these riddles, these parables, is to take you to this given moment, to help you feel from within your own heart, to help you think from within your own mind, to have this grow organically out of your own experience. One of the most powerful examples of this I've ever seen is our friend Michelle Ritter, a young woman who died of a very savage cancer at way too young of an age. And we would meet for coffee, and she would talk about how she could show love to her daughter after she was dead. How could she have her child know that this young soul was loved for the rest of her life? And she did things like make jewelry out of her fingerprints so that her daughter could look at that and know there was somebody that loved her before she was born. I mean, to me, I've never known that kind of pain. And conversely, I've never known that kind of personal love. And so she was a great teacher for me, for many of us. And these are some thoughts that she left behind. She wrote this for an article for, I think, Hill Country Times or something like that. And this is, at her funeral, we lifted up. She was one of the wisest people I've ever met. She said, life is short. This is what she was wanting us to realize. Life is short. I beg you to live it to the fullest. Be present with your families, friends, pets, nature. Turn off technology sometimes and play with your kids. Watch the sunset and listen to the rustle of the trees. Go on your dream trip. You'll never have enough money, just go. Life isn't necessarily fair. Make the most of it instead. A lot of scary things are happening in the world right now. Instead of being swallowed by sadness or fear, look for the helpers. She loved Mr. Rogers. Great people are out in force, making a difference for the world and for our family. People are awesome. That was a full paragraph. She said, one great way to find meaning in life is to help others. So I humbly request that everyone reading So I humbly request that everyone reading this participate in an act of kindness towards someone who needs it. You are the helpers who make a difference for someone. All we have is today, so embrace it. I think that's about as clear an understanding of what the gift Jesus is trying to give us as I've ever run across. So when we ask the question, what is the meaning of my life? Where does meaning come from? Particularly at times when I look around me and I can't find meaning externally. I think the gift that Jesus is trying to give us was paraphrased by Tolstoy as the kingdom is within you. That's only one side of that truth. It's also around you. It's in strangers. But to know it's in you and it's there as standard equipment in the wonderment, in the reverence and the awe that you feel, that you carry within you a pearl of great price. And maybe the reason you can't see it is because you're immersed in it. It's all around you. And so it's hard to perceive, and only a riddle can help you realize that. Maybe the reason you can't feel it is because you already have it. You can't find it because it's within you. You just need to honor it and lift it to the center of your life, to lift up your highest value as the organizing principle of your life. It will change as you grow and in different times. But as the Sufis would say, continue that pursuit and look always for the pearl within the pearl. Well, those are my thoughts about our parable. We set aside 60 seconds for you to spend with your own thoughts.